Okay, I am 20 years old, and my name is, well, let it be Jane. There are many girls in the world who are named Jane, but for me, it is hard enough to tell you my story, let alone tell you my name. After everything that happened, I feel very dirty, and I guess I will have to live like this for the rest of my life. I can only hope that it will still be long. I've always had problems talking about myself. I suppose I'm an introvert, and I could never feel at home talking to anyone, except for children. Oh, I love children so much. I had a chance to make sure that this dream would come true when I got a job as an assistant teacher at a childcare center. At that time, I made a firm decision. I will devote my life to children. So, after work, I took late evening classes in teacher education and thought that someday, then, maybe, I would have my own children too. I was so uncertain about this. Well, because before you have children, you need to have a husband. My mother taught me in such a simple logistical way that there were moral principles, and I was brought up with these. But I have never, since childhood, been in any relationship with any boy. My best, or rather my only friend, Megan, always told me that I was pretty, but I never knew how to make a proper entrance in order to introduce myself. And only once in my life have I worn a beautiful dress. It was for my graduation ball. No boy invited me to accompany him on this special evening, but still, it was one of the few evenings that seemed kind of romantic to me. Yes, that's exactly how I felt that evening. I dreamed that one of the boys would invite me to dance with him, and that it would be my first dance with a boy in my entire life. But that never happened. After the graduation party, I was so depressed that I abandoned the idea of having a boyfriend for a long time. But then I started to feel lonely more and more often. After graduation, I moved away from my mother's home. And every night when I came back home after a hard day at work and school, nobody was waiting for me in my small and very empty apartment. I began to miss having someone near me, so much that I decided to confess this to Megan. I was surprised to learn that Megan had been worried about me all this time, and as soon as I talked about it, my friend literally got excited with the idea that we should find a boyfriend for me. Megan is nothing like me at all. She is active, easygoing, talkative, and has never had any problems making friends with people. And she had a lot of boys around her. And I hadn't even kissed anybody. Can you imagine? I never told her this, but after this conversation, I had to confess. This made Megan whistle in amazement, and it only made her determination to turn me into a normal girl stronger. Megan's plan, however, wasn't outstanding. She promised that we would make me into a beauty, which meant shopping for some pretty outfit, putting on makeup, and doing my hair in a stylish hairdo. After that, as Megan promised, we would go to a party where, as she put it, we would meet everyone, which meant, of course, a lot of guys. It all seemed like something very strange to me, but I had to change my life, and I decided to trust my friend and just go with the flow. And you know, after Megan had done something with my looks, I even started to like that girl who smiled back at me from the mirror. I was in an excellent mood when we went to the party. Of course, I was very scared. I had no idea how to get to know someone, and without the first step on my part, everything could end up just like it did in my graduation party, with nothing. But fortunately, Megan was nearby, and she promised to introduce me to someone. However, she didn't stay with me for long. Megan's friends quickly took her away from me, and I was left alone. And then Alistair appeared. He was a little older than me, tall and slender, maybe not too handsome, but to me, at that moment, he seemed like a Prince Charming. He came up to me, quickly realized that I was very shy, said something friendly and funny, and suddenly I felt a sense of ease and very comfortable. And then we danced to slow melodies because I admitted that I didn't know how to dance at all. But this didn't bother Alistair at all. He led the dance and guided me throughout the whole evening. I even managed to forget that I'd come to the party with Megan. All that occupied me at that moment were Alistair's blue eyes, large, beautiful, and as if they were hiding something in their depths. Yes, I think I fell in love with him that evening. I have never felt anything like it. I completely succumbed to the charm of this guy. He asked me if we could meet again in a place where not so many people were around, and I gave him my phone number without giving it a second thought. Alistair left the party before it ended. Soon, Megan started to worry about me. At least, that's what she told me, and found me among the other guests. I told her everything, that I had met a guy and that he was incredible. Megan looked pensive and asked me what his name was. As soon as she heard his name, Alistair, the expression on her face changed from pensive to worried. And she asked me to be careful with this Alistair, but I didn't pay much attention to her words. I was in love. Already, during our next meeting, Alistair asked me on a date. Gosh, I was so happy. Just a couple of days ago, I could not imagine that I could even find a boyfriend, especially this kind of boyfriend. Alistair seemed perfect to me. Even his name seemed special, magical, as if from the pages of a book. If Alistair had suggested that I marry him at that moment, I would have agreed without hesitation. He didn't, but instead he suggested that I stay at his house. And as a result, I spent the whole week there with him, alone. I even lied and took sick leave at work. It was some kind of madness, but I was going to do everything I could to make our days together last longer. And I told a lie again to get more sick leave for several days after that. And then it all ended as abruptly as it had started. Alistair broke up with me without any hesitation, the same way as I had let him become my first. He asked me to meet him in a crowded place, and there he told me that he didn't see any future in our relationship, that he needed to move on. And he confirmed these words by turning his back to me and calmly leaving, while I held back my tears with all my strength and finally came to my senses from shock. I had to keep what was left of my pride, but I couldn't keep it. In less than a week, I began to call Alistair several times every day, text him using all the messengers, leave comments on his social network pages. Now I understand how pathetic I looked. But then I was just living in hell, and I was burning in its flames. When I got so desperate that I went to Alistair's home, he came out to me and in a very rude manner told me that he was fed up with me. He didn't let me in and literally shut the door right in my face. Surprisingly, it was my work that finally helped. After all these numerous days off, I needed to rebuild my reputation there. I returned to my work with children and once again plunged into the atmosphere of working with them. No, I didn't become fully happy again. It was a completely different sort of happiness, and it couldn't cure a broken heart, but it really became easier for me. I did not forget Alistair, but I was also ready to move on. And then trouble came from where I hadn't expected it at all, and it came to stay forever. I consider myself a responsible person. That's the way my mother had brought me up since childhood, especially considering that I work with children. I regularly undergo a full medical examination and do medical tests, a lot of tests, including an HIV test. And this time, my family doctor, who is a sweet and usually very calm woman, this time she was pale and worried. She knew me well and could not believe that I had become HIV positive. I also could not believe it. We even did a second test, but the previous result was correct. I had an HIV positive status. For a while, I simply could not believe it, let alone accept it. Why and how? But as soon as the first shock passed, I understood the obvious. It was Alistair. I should have been furious, but instead, I only felt some kind of startling, apathetic calmness. I called Alistair, and suddenly he picked up the phone. When I informed him, quite matter-of-factly, that he should have known that he had an HIV positive status. He was my first and only boyfriend, so there could be no mistake. Alistair's reaction was unexpected. He yelled at me, and I heard how much rage was in his voice. He denied everything, blamed me for everything, and then he hung up, and I haven't talked to him since. A few days later, I suddenly remembered that Megan was trying to warn me about something. When my affair with Alistair began, and especially afterward, I avoided my friend. I didn't want to discuss anything that happened, but now I just needed to talk to her. When Megan finally came to see me, I unexpectedly broke out into a tantrum that was focused on her. I yelled at Megan, cried, blamed her. Megan didn't understand anything that was going on. Only after I calmed down was I able to ask her a question. Why didn't she tell me directly about Alistair's status? But it turned out that Megan had something else in mind. She only heard that Alistair had had a lot of girlfriends and that he had broken many hearts. But what happened to me really shocked Megan. Well, now I have to live with it. Live with HIV. But the worst part is that I have to leave the childcare center. My doctor says that close contact with so many people, and especially with children, many of whom are not even vaccinated against certain infections, since many parents deny vaccinations nowadays, can be detrimental to my immune system. So I have to quit my job.